For 6 long years, I've slept beside silence. That's the only way to describe it. Not sleep, vigil. Dana's body was warm beside me, her chest rising and falling in that careful, mechanical rhythm the doctors taught me to watch for, but her eyes never opened. Not once. A skiing accident, one bad turn, a tree she never saw. They called it a deep coma and warned me not to expect miracles, as I became her miracle. Instead, I bathed her every morning, learned how to move her limbs so I wouldn't hurt her, read her favorite books out loud. Even when my throat tightened and the words blurred together, I sold my business, stopped answering friends' calls, let my life shrink down to the size of our bedroom. I chose her every single day. Until about 3 months ago, that's when things started happening that didn't fit the rules of a house frozen in time. At first, I told myself I was just tired. Grief does strange things to the brain. Everyone says that. But I'd come home and find Dana's clothes in the hamper. Clothes I was certain I hadn't changed her into that day. The sheets on her side of the bed looked different too, smoothed and tightened, like someone had run their hands across them long after I'd left for work. Then there was a smell, faint, floral, fresh perfume. Dana hadn't worn perfume in 6 years. I stood in the doorway one night, breathing it in, my chest tight, searching for a rational explanation. Maybe a nurse. Maybe something spilled from an old bottle I forgot about. Except the night nurse position had been cut months ago. That I checked the locks, the cameras. Everything was normal. Too normal. I started wondering if something in me had finally cracked, if the isolation and the endless sameness had pushed me into imagining things. The thought scared me more than anything else. Because if I couldn't trust my own mind, I had nothing left. That's when I decided to test reality. I told everyone I had a 3-day conference in Chicago. I booked a flight I could cancel, packed a suitcase, went through the motions like an actor who knew his lines by heart. I kissed Dana's forehead, told her I'd call every night, and walked out the door with a steady voice I didn't feel. That night I parked 2 blocks away, under a dead streetlight, engine off, staring at my own house as midnight crept closer. My hands were slick on the steering wheel. Every passing car made my stomach drop. At 12:47 a.m., I got out and moved through the shadows, heart pounding so loud I was sure it would give me away. The bedroom window was lit. I crouched beneath it, took a breath, and lifted myself just enough to look inside. There was a man standing beside Dana's bed. I recognized him instantly, Mitchell Crane, her physical therapist. Polite, professional, so careful he was practically invisible. The kind of person you stop noticing because he never crosses a line. He leaned close to her, whispering something I couldn't hear, and Dana's lips moved. Not a twitch, not a reflex. She was responding. The world lurched. I couldn't breathe. My fingers clawed at the window frame, as if I could hold myself upright through sheer will. Mitchell's hand brushed near her hair, familiar, intimate. Like this wasn't the first time that MY legs gave out. I sank back down, shaking so hard my teeth rattled, and stumbled to the car. I sat there until dawn, staring at the dashboard as the hours ticked by, my mind replaying the same impossible image. When I finally went inside, the evidence was everywhere. Fresh clothes, lotion left open on the nightstand, heart monitor logs showing spikes that shouldn't exist. Someone had been awake. Someone had been lying. And as the truth settled into my chest heavy and cold, I understood one thing with absolute clarity. I didn't just need answers, that I needed proof that I started with a house. If I was going to doubt my own sanity, I needed something colder than memory, something that didn't blink or second-guess itself. While Dana slept, I installed hidden cameras in the bedroom and hallway, a pinhole lens tucked into a smoke detector, an audio recorder behind the nightstand. I told anyone who asked that I was upgrading the Wi-Fi, tightening security. No one questioned it. No one ever questions a devoted husband. Then I waited. Every night stretched longer than the last. I watched live feeds on my phone at work, my pulse jumping every time headlights passed the house. I knew Mitchell would come back. People who feel safe always do. And when he finally did, the truth arrived without mercy. The footage showed him unlocking the front door with a key, not knocking, not hesitating. He moved through the house like it belonged to him, dimmed the lights without looking for switches, drew the curtains closed with practiced ease. When he leaned over Dana's bed, his voice dropped into something soft and possessive. "Don't worry," he whispered. "He's gone. Just a little longer." I watched him brush her hair back from her face like it was routine, like this was normal, like this had been happening for years. The audio cut in and out, but I replayed it obsessively, frame by frame, sound spike by sound spike. At one point, his voice sharpened. "He's suspicious," he said. "I'll handle it." Then quieter. "They believe you're still out." Dana's lips moved again. Subtle, controlled. The curve of her cheek shifted in response to his words. These weren't spasms. I'd memorized every reflex her body had ever shown. This was different. So what was she? Awake? Trapped? Drugged into obedience? I needed to know who Mitchell Crane really was. That's when things stopped adding up. His records were perfect. Too perfect. No social media. No recent tax filings. No footprint at all past a certain point. When I pushed deeper, a bigger hole appeared. The hospital had no employment record of him after 2017, the same year Dana had her accident. I hired a private investigator and, in parallel, confronted Dana's neurologist. I asked him the question I've been afraid to voice. Was it medically possible that she'd been conscious this whole time? The doctor went pale. He stammered, rubbed his face like he'd been slapped. Then he used a phrase I'd never heard before: covert consciousness. Rare cases where patients appear unresponsive but remain aware. Stable isn't the same as unchanging, he said weakly. I showed him the video. He stared at it, silent, then shook his head. This shouldn't be possible, he whispered. Unless... His voice trailed off. He pulled Dana's sedation records, his hands shaking as he scrolled. That's when he found it. The dosages were wrong. Not dramatically. Not enough to trigger alarms. Slight alterations, perfectly timed. Enough to suppress voluntary movement. Enough to leave her aware but powerless. Someone's been altering her sedation, he said. Carefully, regularly. The truth landed like a physical blow. Dana hadn't been in a coma, as she'd been trapped. 6 years of awareness. 6 years of chemical imprisonment. And someone had made it look like care. The investigator called that night. Mitchell Crane doesn't exist, he said. His real name was Evan Lake, former anesthesiologist. Lost his license 6 years ago for clinical sedation fraud. I felt my chest go hollow as the dates aligned themselves without effort. Evan Lake had been the on-site medic at the ski resort that I pulled the old reports, the photos, the emergency logs. There he was, unremarkable, forgettable, standing just outside the frame. The first person to treat Dana after fall. The first to administer sedation. What if it hadn't been a coma at all? What if it had been a misdiagnosed concussion followed by the wrong drug in the wrong hands, and the darkest thought of all crept in, slow and unbearable? What if Dana wasn't supposed to wake up? Because suddenly, I remembered the trust documents she'd signed years earlier. The assets she protected. The access she granted, only under very specific conditions. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a plan. Money explained what love never could. Dana hadn't just been wealthy. She was powerful. Controlling shares in her family's real estate empire. Voting rights that could shift boards and break dynasties. After the accident, those rights were quietly transferred to a conservator for her protection. On paper, it was clean, legal, necessary. The name on those documents made my stomach turn. Evan Lake. And the final piece, the one that almost broke me, came from the investigator's last report. Evan hadn't been a stranger before me. He'd been Dana's fiancé, the man she loved before she chose me. He hadn't vanished. He'd erased himself, changed his face's name, and taken control of her life inch by inch. Drugged her, hid her awareness, used her body as a key to her fortune. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was a truth I couldn't escape. She knew she'd been awake the whole time, locked inside herself, betrayed by someone she once loved, and by someone she believed she could still trust. And I had been standing right there, reading her books, holding her hand, never seeing. I'd bent close to her that night, my forehead against hers, guilt burning through me. I should have protected you, I whispered. I should have known. Then quieter, steadier. Dana, if you can hear me, I'm going to end this. The machinery of justice moved fast. After that, MY lawyer didn't blink when I laid everything out. We drafted an emergency petition, sealed and airtight. Video footage, hospital logs, proof of a false identity. A pattern so clear it felt obscene it had taken 6 years to surface. That night, Evan came again. Only this time, I was waiting till he just reached Dana's bedside when I stepped out of the shadows. "I know everything," I said. He froze. Then his hand went to his coat, panic flashing across his face as he pressed a hidden button. Before he could move, private security flooded the room. He bolted anyway, desperation overriding sense. But he didn't make it 10 steps as they restrained him. One question tore out of me before I could stop it. "Did she ever stop loving you?" He looked at me calmly, almost kindly. "She never stopped," he said. "Not after the accident. Not after the wedding. Not even now." The words echoed like poison. I wondered, in that moment, if Dana had known all along, if she'd let it happen, silent and watching, choosing him over me in the only way she could. Court came swiftly. The judge barely needed an hour. Evan's conservatorship was revoked on the spot, his access stripped. Dana's estate returned to her control. Justice, clean and decisive. But she still hadn't moved. I sat beside her afterward, the room quiet except for machines. "I know everything," I said softly. "You don't have to hide anymore." A single tear slid down her cheek. Then her lips parted. "I was afraid you'd leave me too." "Never," I said, the word breaking open 6 years of silence between us. That should have been an E-N-D-I-T, wasn't. When she could finally speak more, Dana told me the last truth. Evan hadn't acted alone. The real architect had been her father, Thomas Ashford, CEO of Ashford Global Holdings. He'd blocked her independence, appointed Evan as conservator, justified it all as protecting the company. When I confronted him, I recorded everything. "I did what was necessary," he said coldly. "She's alive, isn't she?" Within 48 hours, the media had it. The SEC stepped in. Thomas Ashford resigned in disgrace, criminal charges following close behind. For the first time in 6 years, Dana stood on her own. We moved far from the city to a quiet coastal town. Dana paints now. I write. Some mornings we sit with coffee, watching the ocean in companionable silence. Because once, silence was a prison. Now it's peace.